What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the channel. Today we have a special video for you guys, and as I do every year with Madden, I've officially compiled a Madden 21 roster for you guys that is going to be a more realistic system, a more realistic rating system for you guys, and hopefully create a more interesting franchise dynamic for you guys. So as you guys can see here on the screen, I actually just officially uploaded it, but the description that I listed on it is Jacob Reid on YouTube's revised Madden roster. Complete ratings overhaul to better align with draft classes and fix underrated, overrated players, and it is based on career stats and PFF grades. So one of the things that I want to emphasize about this roster before I actually show you guys it is that there are many things that I take into account whenever I'm factoring in a player's ratings. And one of those things that I think is highly undervalued by the EA developers and whoever performs the ratings over there is actually the lifetime and career stats of players in the NFL. So what tends to happen whenever the Madden devs create their rosters, and I'm not saying this is wrong, but what happens when the Madden devs tend to create their rosters is they tend to favor the players that are just good in the here and now. And so players like Patrick Mahomes, while he might be one of the best players in the NFL, tends to get a higher rating than guys that have been doing the same thing as Mahomes for 10 plus years. I mean, you look at a guy like Russell Wilson, and he's been doing the same thing as Mahomes with less help around him for a longer period of time. And so what ends up happening is Madden gives them far different ratings, but doesn't really factor into account their PFF grade, doesn't factor into account, actual statistic measurements as to whether the players are good or not. It doesn't factor into account their career history. And I really honestly can't speak to how the Madden devs come up with their ratings because they've been so far off for so many years that we need to create a roster every year for them. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the roster, and I can give you guys a couple notes and show you guys a little bit about the roster and why we kind of did some of the things that we did. So let's go ahead and load it up. And essentially what we did here on an overall scale is we shifted a lot of the ratings downward. And the reason that we shifted a lot of the ratings downward is because you notice a lot of players in the game or in the roster are in like the mid 70s. Even if they're not good players, maybe they, have had a couple hundred yards here and there to add to a team or something like that. There are a lot of players in the NFL in this roster that are in the mid 70s, and we have to adjust that because what ends up happening is whenever you have a draft class, a lot of players from a draft class come in and take jobs away from other players, whether they're depth players, whether they're starting players. Draft class players come in and have a shot to earn starting spots. And what ends up happening with the base roster in the game is you have, randomized draft classes or whatever, and those players don't get jobs because they're so low overall in draft classes compared to the players that are actually on the roster. And so what you guys will see here is the top players in the league, instead of starting out at 99s, start out at around a 95. And so the overalls of basically everybody in the league has been taken down from 99. It's been taken down about 5 overall points for everybody in the league, and in addition to that, it's been spread out further because you can see there will potentially be some starters on these rosters in the 60s, whereas before it was 70 and above. Now you will see some starters in the 60s in this roster. So I can't take total credit for this philosophy on my own. There are others on YouTube that have tried things like this before, and I believe Bangle, or whatever his name is one of the guys that is a big proponent of this, is kind of taking down the ratings. So I have to give credit where credit is due. That is where we draw the idea from. But this is my own custom roster, something that I came up with from scratch off the Madden's base roster all on my own and did all the work for it. Now, it's not 100%. I didn't go through every single player on the roster, but I went through so many players to adjust ratings. And one of the things that I want to point out to you guys here is very clearly the fact that we take into account a player's career. Since Aaron Donald has come into the league, he has been by far and away the best player every single year in the NFL. Therefore, Aaron Donald is the only player, in my opinion and the people that I'm working with's opinion, that deserves a 99 overall. And everybody below him has not proven that they're at that level of of competitor for their entire career. The only type of player, in our opinion, that deserves a 99 overall is a player that has been consistently the best every single year since they've come into the league or for a substantial period of time. So don't get me wrong, a guy like Patrick Mahomes is fantastic and probably will be the best, one of the best, if not the best quarterbacks of all time. But he's only had 2 years under his belt. So how can we give a guy that has only done it for 2 years and hasn't proven that he is consistently the best quarterback in the league? He has all these weapons around him. He hasn't proven that he is that level of quarterback and can do it without all of this help around him. There are guys like Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers or Drew Brees that have done it with less help around them for a longer period of time. So with that being said, we had to take Patrick Mahomes down, and we ended up boosting up a lot of other quarterbacks to be where they deserve to be. Russell Wilson being very close to Mahomes, Rodgers getting a boost, Drew Brees up here to 93, and you guys will see that they start to go down sequentially. And one of the things that I want to point out to you guys is there's kind of a consistent rating system for these guys, and that is anybody that is 90 and above is what I would consider a transcendent player, a player that just absolutely changes the game. These are going to be your players that deserve X factor. Like I said, the Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, and Lamar Jacksons of the world. Then you're going to have the elite players, and the elite players in this roster are going to be 85 and above. These are the players that change the game. They're absolutely superstars, and they're probably some of the best in the league, but they're not at that transcendent level. You'll often see guys like a Tom Brady or a Ben Roethlisberger or a Matt Ryan that are on the downward spiral of their career towards the end of their career that have shown some propensity to fall off. So they're not necessarily playing at quite the same level as before. And then you have the up-and-coming stars that could become transcendent talents if they stay healthy and stay on the field, and if they can continue to produce at that level over time. Guys like Carson Wentz, Deshaun Watson, and Dak Prescott. So that is the rating system. Is 90 and above is transcendent, 85 and above is elite talent, superstar, or I don't know what you would call them, very good players are going to be 80 and above, 80 to 84. You know, guys like Matt Stafford, Phillip Rivers, Derek Carr that are very good but aren't elite. You know what I mean? I guess the elite talent is 85 and above, and then these are the very good players. And then you start to get into the players that are like almost there, players that have almost started to prove that they're good enough, guys like Kyler Murray and Josh Allen that are ready to break into that level. And then you also have guys that are, you know, they've done it for maybe a year, like Ryan Tannehill. And then you have guys that are, you know, kind of in that above average tier, which would be the high 70s. And then you start to get into the mid 70s, and these are the meh players, the average players, or the close to average, maybe slightly above average. And then you start to get into the below average players as you go down, the players that haven't proved anything yet. So that is one of the big things, is that we try to shift this rating down, and we try to keep the categories of players consistent. There is a clear difference between a Patrick Mahomes and a Dak Prescott. Yes, both very, very good players, but Dak Prescott isn't quite there yet. Dak Prescott had one great year, and if he has a second great year, he gets moved up into this category. Likewise, you can't move a guy like a Drew Brees or a Rodgers or a Wilson out of this category because they have consistently been at the top of the league for their entire career. So that is how this rating system is developed. And as you guys will see, we start out at around a 95 for every single player, and then we go down from there in terms of what their overalls are. So hopefully this allows you guys to kind of link up with your draft classes a little bit better, because one of the things that's going to happen here is you're going to end up with teams, you know, you're going to have the very good players on a team, but then you're also going to have the not so good players. And if you drafted a really good rookie, which would be like a mid 70 overall, they could come in and take a starting job away from these replacement level players. And this is how a lot of these teams are going to be. This is kind of how we had to adjust the ratings. So, you know, if a player was drafted to the Chargers, for example, you know, Keenan Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are established starters, but between everybody else that they have on the roster, nobody here is really that great and has proven themselves as a starting talent. So you could draft a rookie that could potentially replace these guys. That is one of the most important points, is that, you know, a lot of guys in the traditional Madden roster are overrated. Now, one of the other things to consider is that they just flat out got ratings wrong this year with some players. And I've mentioned this before, and this is talking about guys, for example, like TJ Watt, who was maybe the best pass rusher in 2019, very similar to Shaquille Barrett. And TJ Watt was at around an 85 overall. And was runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year. And then you go to the Buccaneers and you look at Shaquille Barrett, and Shaquille Barrett was at like an 83 overall. These are players that, based on their recent performances, do deserve a buff to be higher than where Madden had them. And Madden does do that with certain players. You know, you look at the Patriots, and you look at Stephon Gilmore. Stephon Gilmore got a massive buff from where he was before. He got up to a 99 overall. And so Madden isn't consistent in how they apply their ratings. The developers aren't consistent in how they apply their ratings, and so we have to go through and fix these ratings so that they're more consistent. This makes more sense. Stephon Gilmore should be closer in overall with respect to TJ Watt, for example, because one of them was the winner of the yearly award and one of them was the runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year. So they should realistically be very close in overall. Now, these overalls aren't going to be perfect. You know, not everybody's going to agree with all of these overalls, but this is the system that we felt most consistently links up with draft classes, while also allows for some flexibility and allows for, you know, kind of a better spread in terms of ratings, and allows for more realistic ratings for all of these players. So hopefully you guys will at least go out there and give this roster a download, give it a look, you know, give it a try, see if you guys like it. You know, in either case, you know, I'm not saying you guys have to, you know, use it or anything like that, but at least give it a look and see what you guys think about it, and let me know any of your feedback, any players that could specifically use change, because like I said, I've been putting a lot of time and effort into this roster, but I haven't had unlimited time, so I haven't been able to look at every single player. So if there's anybody specific that I missed, let me know in the comment section, and I will try to address that in a future patch to this roster. So hopefully this is good for you guys. Hopefully you guys will use it. If it is helpful to you guys in some way, make sure you leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel below, and make sure that you guys comment as well with any changes that you might like to see to the roster. If you like it, let me know. If you don't like it, let me know. Whatever feedback you have, put it in the comment section. I'll see you guys in the next video, and I hope you guys have a good night.